This is a great opportunity to have a discussion with some real leaders in the world of PACE. For the first half of this discussion, I'm going to facilitate questions. For the second half of it, Mark Croner is going to have a roving mic, and we're going to be asking all of you to take part in it. So be thinking of questions, and that includes you, Dr. Grady.
Okay.
Because you've got a lot of background in this kind of topic, right?
A little bit.
Yeah, a little bit.
She's the expert.
Okay, so do you have a mic up here?
Yes.
Okay, good. Okay, so what we're going to do, the first question, and it's actually a three-part question, and we're going to start with you, Stephanie. You're going to say your name, your title, and the organization that you serve with.
Okay, thank you. My name is Stephanie Winslow. I'm the Executive Director of the PACE Association of Michigan. Thanks for having me.
Hi, everyone. I'm Mary Naber. I'm the CEO for PACE Southeast Michigan.
My name is Sicely Baker, and I am the Day Health Center Manager for Tomei Rivertown at PACE Southeast Michigan.
And I'm Roxanne Perry, and I'm the PACE Manager for the state of Michigan. I manage all of the Michigan PACE programs, and I'm with the Michigan Department of Health and Human Services.
Can you say your name again?
I'm Roxanne Perry.
So next question, if you could just reflect on the first time you became aware of this program called PACE, and what your initial thoughts were when you heard about it.
I first heard about it when I interviewed for a job with the department. I had been in long-term care, and it was overseeing two programs, the My HealthLink program, which has been a demonstration program from the state, as well as PACE, and that was my first experience. And after doing 10 years of long-term care regulatory work, I thought, what a wonderful program.
My first experience of PACE was back in 1999 when it was called Center for Senior Independence. My mom started working there, and then my grandmother had to be a participant at PACE in our Friendship Park area. And actually, Dr. Grady was my grandmother's doctor while we were at PACE. So that's the first time that I had ever heard of PACE. And then I was 12 years old. Sorry.
I actually worked for St. John Providence Health System at the time. I was visiting another system in Kansas, and they introduced us to the PACE program for the first time. And I inquired about it, for Ascension, for our area, and I learned that Henry Ford had the program. And that was my first learning, years before I ever got into this.
I think the first time I heard about PACE, I was working in the legislature. I was in the Michigan House of Representatives, and my boss at the time chaired the Department of Health and Human Services, and I believe Roger came in advocating, and he had a binder about this thick with information, cost savings slides. I think we had a presentation on the wall, and that was some time ago. So thank you, Roger.
And that would have been Dr. Roger Kahn, Senator from the Bay City, Saginaw area, right?
Yeah, the 32nd Senate District prior to redistricting, yeah.
Okay. And you were just 12 at that time too, right?
Absolutely.
So as we continue this dialogue, just want to, and Sean Bloom, who is the president and CEO of the National PACE Association, really sends his regrets. He still may join us. His son, we think he broke his ankle or lower leg earlier today, so they were consulting with an orthopedic surgeon. But we have the head of the PACE Association of Michigan, that's Stephanie. We have the CEO of the 5th largest PACE program in the country and growing fast every day, Mary Naber. We have Sicely, who runs the Tomei Rivertown PACE Center. And we have the top regulator and advocate within the state government, Roxanne. So we've got a powerhouse group here. So Roxanne, what, if you pass the mic back down this way, if you don't mind.
Can I keep it?
Pass it. This will be to Roxanne. And I'm going to ask the same question to all of you. Not all the questions will be the same, but this one will be. So what do you find especially appealing to the PACE model in serving frail older adults?
The first word that comes to mind is it's very comprehensive. When you have an 11-person interdisciplinary team that helps make all the decisions regarding the care and the well-being of that participant, to me that kind of sums it up, comprehensive.
The fact that the participants that we serve can have an opportunity to stay independent, even modified independent in their homes. I think that's really big, especially in Southeast Michigan, where Wayne County is the biggest county, and I'm sure it has the most older adults. So I think being able to age in place at home with collaboration with the families is what I feel is best versus going to the hospital, going to nursing home. So I think that's the best thing I see about this.
I've been in healthcare my entire career, which is a very long time. And when I stumbled into PACE 9 years ago in this program, what really blew me away was the fact that it's relationship-based. It's not just an advertisement, it really is relationship-based. And in that, it allows the program, because we're the plan, the health plan, so we're the payer, and we're the comprehensive care provider, allows us flexibility to make sure that that individual gets what they need. And oftentimes, well, not often, most likely, the people that we serve have not always had equity in healthcare. And I like to believe that the model that we provide, they finally have it. That's what it does for me.
So I'm going to take a different spin. I'm a lobbyist by trade. So when I'm out advocating for our PACE program, we like to talk about savings, right? So we look at the cost of PACE versus traditional nursing home care. And this is where people want to be served. So really, it's a good cost-saving measure for the state of Michigan to invest in our PACE programs. So it's kind of where I see it in the last couple months with advocacy around the Capitol.
Great, and we'll this next question, we'll start with you, Stephanie. And thanks for all you do in Lansing and everywhere else. You're doing a fantastic job. So, I mean, this sounds so great. Why wouldn't, everyone want to join it? So the question is, what are some of the greater challenges and or barriers to the decision-making process for older adults to enroll in PACE? So challenges or barriers to making the decision?
I would say some of it is awareness, right? So show of hands, who has heard of PACE before? Have we all heard of PACE? Okay, bad crowd, right? Bad crowd. I would say though the average person hasn't heard of PACE, so a lot of it's awareness, right? A lot of people think that it's a newer program, and so I think to entrust a newer program with your loved ones and yourself can be a little bit scary. And I think that there are also regulatory barriers that a lot of our participants face that would prevent them from enrolling in our program at the time of need. And that could be cutoff dates, it could be income levels, access to some of our PACE programs. So when we look at the map, PACE isn't an option for 100% of Michigan. And so I think in some of those areas, they just don't have it as an option.
I would underline everything that Stephanie has just said. Probably the one of the most frustrating is the Medicaid income level. If somebody's $5 over and they have complex chronic conditions, they cannot come into PACE because it's only eligible to those who are medicated no, let me correct myself. You can privately pay, but most people can't afford it because they have to pay the full Medicaid payment amount. So what is really, to me, unfortunate is that there are a whole lot of older adults with complex conditions that don't have access to PACE, whether they're eligible for Medicaid or Medicare only. Many that are Medicare only, they have no access to PACE. So to me, there's a whole opportunity in that, because it's a beautiful care model.
And my understanding is, you may want to speak to this, Mary or Stephanie, you probably want to use the word yet, because there's work being
Yet.
done on that.
Well, there's a lot of work being done, and the progress is slow. It really needs to change at the Medicare CMS level. It's got to change from a programmatic level. And even sliding scale could be an option. I mean, there's lots of options that people are exploring that have been put forth, but we don't hear about a lot of change or progress. Legislation sits there.
So Sicily, challenges and or barriers to making the decision to enroll in PACE.
So, as you all probably can see, that I don't work on their level. I work on the operations level with the participants, and the challenges I see is the doctors having to become part of the Here Before program. A lot of seniors have already established relationships for years with their doctor, their behavioral health specialist, or things like that. And people, a lot of people don't like change, especially drastic change like that has to do with their health care. So I think that's one of the barriers to PACE. Another barrier would be people feeling like they're no longer in control of their situation. So just on the operations level, when people are talking about, oh, I think I want to disenroll, that's kind of what I'm hearing even to this day, is they want their old doctor back, or they just don't like the change that's happening, or they feel kind of out of control of their own situation.
So Cicely, and maybe we changed this, but at some point, I recall that we provided an opportunity that participants could still see their former doctor once or twice a year. They didn't actually change their primary care provider, but they could make a visit to their doctor. Is that true?
That is true, but there, as she might speak to it better, as a condition is they still have to be contracted with us. So that is a barrier, because as a doctor, and I'm not a doctor, but if I was a doctor, I would think, well, who are these people that think I have to contract with them to see my own patient? So that's just the thought. That's kind of the thought. But can it happen? Yes, as long as they meet that criteria. Am I correct?
Yes, yeah. And the challenge with that is that often it's on the provider side, the doctor, who's a private physician, doesn't want to participate with PACE. Even though we would pay them Medicare rates, it's the attention to the utilization of care, the medications, that we have to collaborate to be able to make it work well for the participant. And that part is sometimes not received well.
So Roxanne, would you like to answer that question, or if I have another one if you'd like.
Well, I guess I do want to say something. I would echo what they said, and it is heartbreaking it makes me cry when you talk about being $5 over. I had a call a few years ago from a sister of a developmentally disabled brother that finally got into PACE, and they could not believe the change in him. And literally, he was $2 over the amount and had to leave PACE. We don't set the rates, it's a Medicaid set rule, but I was elected somehow I had to write the letter to the sister explaining that there was wasn't anything that we could do about it. So I know exactly what you're saying, and it's not the first time that I've heard that. And I would echo what Mary said, that part of the physician, CMS did lessen or loosen the rule that they could have their own PCP, but like Mary said, the problem is they have to be part of that IDT, and they don't have time. That's a very involved interdisciplinary team, and it just doesn't work very well.
They're on a fee-for-service model, we're on a capitated model.
So that's what IDT is.
Interdisciplinary team.
Oh, so here's the question, Roxanne, and I communicated with Roxanne. I said, you don't have to answer any question you don't want to answer. So,
I didn't get that.
You're gonna get the questions.
all right, so Roxanne.
Different playing field.
Yeah. So what are the Michigan Department of Health and Human Services goals for the future of PACE programs in Michigan?
I would say expansion. What we hear over and over again is that the belief is that one reason why PACE might not be as well known as other programs is the fact that it's not offered like other health plans, that Medicaid health plans that are throughout the state. PACE is limited in the service area that's covered by PACE. But I would say their number one goal is for expansion of PACE.
And I think it's fair to say, and maybe Mary and Stephanie, that Michigan is regarded as one of the most progressive states related to PACE, right? Yeah. Okay, so Stephanie, this is a question for you. What are the top priorities for the PACE Association of Michigan?
Great question. So back to so Michigan actually ranks number 3 in the nation for number of PACE programs. So we currently have 13 PACE programs, and as they had mentioned, 14, and as they going to be 15. And as they had mentioned, you know, Michigan was one of the first states to pilot PACE for out of Centers for Independent Living back in the 90s. And so I would say that we are innovators, and we do rank number 6 for number of participants served, so we're almost at 5,000. So from the association's perspective, it's definitely expansion, right? So we track funding that goes through the legislature, through the administration. We look at different policies, different barriers. But I would say our number one fight right now, or number 1 and 2, would be appropriations. So I'm sure you guys are reading about the budget process in Lansing right now, fiscal year 24. We are fighting for funding. We have a brand new legislature, a lot of new faces, a lot of folks who've never heard of PACE. So it's a lot of the awareness, fighting for current programs to expand. We've got a couple programs we're looking at additional sites, which would be exciting. And then, you know, we're hearing about ARPA, so the American Rescue Plan Act. You know, Michigan has got a substantial chunk of funding on the table, as Roger had mentioned. It's crazy, but it's harder to deal with when there's more money than less money. And so, you know, we're looking at revenues being down in the last week or so. Folks have reported out. There's a lot of different projects being funded, but we would like PACE to receive additional ARPA funding to the tune of $20 million. So we're actually working with the department, Roxanne and her team. They submitted a proposal for some grant funding for our PACE programs, the $20 million that I had mentioned. And so it's just trying to figure out how those dollars could be allocated, if they could be allocated, and then you know, fighting with everybody else. Everybody else has got their hand up for those dollars, right? And so when you're a program that's not statewide, when you don't cover, you know, more than 5,000 lives, you gotta get scrappy. So that's where we are today is FY24, as well as those ARPA funds. That's my number 1 priority.
So would it be fair to say that yet word applies to your comment about not being statewide?
Yeah. So if we look at that map, you know, we've seen some numbers. We've got over 50% of our programs statewide are looking at expansion. When you look at Southeast Michigan, they're one of the fastest growing programs in the nation. They're looking for expansion. We've got Central Michigan, who would also like to expand to additional sites. We've got Sunrise PACE, who would also like to look at, you know, serving the tip of the thumb there. But there's, we're limited by the funding, and so if the state could allocate those funds, we could serve and offer more people across the state PACE as an option.
Mary, similar question for you on what are the major strategic initiatives of PACE Southeast Michigan?
We focus always on the culture of PACE because we're a business that cares for people, and we have to make sure that we're caring for the people that are doing the caring. So that is always a strategic initiative around development of leaders and the culture that we provide for the people that are providing the care. In addition to that, strategic direction is around how do we continue to advance PACE in the state of Michigan, as well as maybe looking at some other states and areas that we can really expand upon. And then, of course, the one that is kind of a favorite for me is how do we expand to Medicare only? Medicare only, chronically ill, who need access to this care model.
Sicely, I think this is a good question for you, because you see this like in the front lines. What are some of the challenges faced by family members who have a loved one that's enrolled in PACE?
I think one of the biggest challenges is the participant is their own person. So the fact that the participant is their own person, like no matter how much you want for someone, my mom always says you can't want better for someone than they want for themselves. And not saying it's not what our participants want, but families want something different that's not what matters most to the participant. So when we look at what matters most, that family dynamic can be challenging because to the family, what matters most is you're going to rehab, you're going to see the doctor every month, and what matters to the participant is, I just want to come to the day health center, I want to play bingo, I want to go home, and I want to make sure I receive my 2 meals while I'm at the center. So it's really what matters, it's what matters most. Also, a challenge with family is participants that do need a guardian, but are not allowing family to step in and help them, even via DPOA, over their health care or anything, or their health care proxy. They're not allowing that. So it's a lot of challenges with families and the fact that we can only speak to who the participant says we can speak to. So if you live in a house with this participant and they call us and you are not in that care circle, you can't get any information. So not only are they like really upset with us and really don't understand, the HIPAA process, I don't know, but that can be a big barrier for families. And I can think of families in my head who I've had small teams with even yesterday that has a barrier of a participant who really should have a guardian, but is not relinquishing that to the family, and APS is saying this participant is fine without a guardian. So they're stuck between a rock and a hard place sometimes.
APS is?
The Adult Protective Services, which anyone can call if they feel like a participant is a danger to themselves or anyone else, or their housing isn't in order, they don't have adequate food, their cleanliness and things like that. APS looks at all of those things, and it has to be extreme for APS to bring you out the house. So if your basic needs are being met, it's nothing that the family can do. APS is not going to remove someone from the house because you don't like that they sleep on the couch and not in their bed.
So kind of a related question, Sicely, and you kind of alluded to a bit. What often happens, and I realize every situation may be different, but what happens when the family member can no longer provide the housing and the caregiving assistance to their loved one? What happens then?
A lot of things can happen. What we hope to happen is that we can get the participant in the least restrictive living environment, like a group home or assisted living, or an independent senior apartment. That's what we really, really want to happen. But it is times where participants have to make that visit to the nursing home, and then we have to do everything we can to get them out. But the family housing, not being able to provide housing is, that's the basic need that all of us need: food, water, and shelter. So if they can't get those three things, nothing else really matters.
Can I just add something?
Yeah, sure,
to that?
please.
And something else that I've seen on the state side, and I know that probably Mary has seen it too, is that any participant that's in PACE has to meet the nursing facility level of care determination. So they meet the criteria to go into a nursing home. So when you have a participant living with a family member, that over the course of time they get burned out. I mean, many PACE provide a lot of respite days and weekends for that reason. But sometimes the family, for whatever reason, has had enough, so to speak, and they say, I want my loved one in a nursing home. And that puts the PACE program in a real predicament because they meet nursing facility level of care, but the whole purpose of PACE is to keep them in the community. So I think that's one of the struggles that I see on the state side often I get calls about, is how do we deal with that? And each case is different.
And Mary, you might want to speak to that, because that's one of our big goals.
Yeah, that's one of our strategies, is that our goal is to keep people out of the nursing home. We saw an uptick in the number of people placed this past year. We're digging into why. But the other thing we've done is also look at how can we get them out of the nursing home into a supportive living environment. And so one of the things we've recently done is moved 18 people out of a nursing home by leasing a wing of an independent housing apartment building. They have their individual room, their bathroom. We're leased the space, and we are paying for the care that they're gonna get around the clock. So lots of our participants that end up in a nursing home, it really has to do with the fact that they need a basic bed. They don't need skilled care. There's a big difference. They need basic beds. And so those are the ones we take out of the nursing home and put in these environments. It's a little more costly to the program than, of course, having them independent. However, it's a lot less costly than paying for the nursing home. And as the insurance company, these are all the things we think about, but it allows us the creativity to do these kinds of solutions rather than having them in institutional living, which is that's why they join PACE, to not be in institutional living.
Talk about not being able to keep out.
Yes, so part of the program, we are not allowed to pay for room and board. So out of the Medicaid dollars. So because we get a bundled payment, Medicare and Medicaid, we find creative ways that will supplement the rent. Because sometimes the rent is what they can afford, and like in this kind of setting, we have to supplement. And we always pay for care if that's what they need. We're paying for care in lots of different settings.
So, Sicely, do you have something to add to that?
I was just gonna add that our process to keep participants out of the nursing home is a very detail-oriented process, starting with how do we maximize the services. So we have this new, probably a couple of months old, a meeting that says how do we maximize services, and this is because Mary and the executive team is like, hey, they're looking at numbers and they see the uptick in nursing home placements. Unfortunately, Tomei Rivertown is one of the highest in nursing home placements since after COVID. So it's a very focused effort, because if we did it for the 18 participants to get out and go to Franklin Terrace, we're sure that it's other participants that's in there that's getting kind of lost in the clouds or the fogginess there, that we want to make sure that we're focusing on to get them out of those living environments and into less restrictive environments.
Stephanie, this question would be for you. A couple of months ago, our board member, Gary Lay, forwarded to a couple of us that the Michigan Hospital Association was having a webinar on PACE. And that was just this last Tuesday, 8:30 Tuesday morning. So could you just say a little bit about how that came to be? And also, if you could just maybe highlight who are some of the sponsors of PACE programs around the state?
Yeah, so, we're very fortunate that we have a lot of great sponsoring entities, which we don't have those maps up, but we've got large hospital systems, Henry Ford Health, we've got Trinity, we've got Ascension, we've got Corewell Health, etc., along with some continuing care retirement communities. We've got some AAAs. We've got an array of, almost 30 or so, and a lot of those organizations have got long-standing commitment to the state of Michigan, and we all kind of share the same goal, right, of keeping people out of nursing homes, letting them live in the communities or wherever they choose. And so, we have been working with the Hospital Association and those partners for a while. And recently we sat down and said, okay, how can we partner? How can we look at nursing home utilization, hospital utilization, and discharge plans, etc. And so we thought, again, it's the awareness of PACE. And so we sat down with their team. We brought in some folks on the PACE side, and we did PACE 101. And talked about partnership and maybe how can we team up together to break down some of those barriers to PACE enrollment. And so it was nice to see you, Roger, on the call this week. We had I think a pretty good audience, but I think it's just the start of a partnership with the Hospital Association.
And that webinar was recorded, so as soon as we get the link to the recording, we'll be sure to distribute it out to the board members. And certainly I would encourage you, it's only about an hour long. It was well done, but the fact that the Michigan Hospital Association made it a priority to have it really spoke a lot, I thought.
Yeah, and it's interesting, Mary and I sit on the National PACE Association board, and we've spoken to a couple of those folks about, partnerships with their hospital associations, and a lot of folks, I don't think, look at those partnerships. And so I think we're trying to do more with natural partners. But it was interesting following that webinar how many hospital systems and other folks weren't aware of PACE and reached out for more information on who their programs were. So we've got a lot more work to do.
Yeah, I thought the representative from Trinity Health was very transparent in how he commented about when he approached the Trinity CEO in Muskegon about doing this. And she was like, you want to do what? Why would we do this? It was very interesting.
Yeah, and 15 years later, they've got a successful program. They're growing. They're looking at an additional site in Holland, which would make 3 for them. So yeah, it's been a journey, and I think when he initially went to the board, I think they had a lot of questions, but I think, hindsight, they're glad that they invested into that community.
Roxanne, go ahead.
Can I just add one thing? In a health system world, they're focused on different things than a PACE program would be. What the conversation is about is how do we help each other, right? And oftentimes the problem today is getting people out of the hospital fast enough. And PACE can be an answer for that. But many of them don't even know about PACE. So it's constant education and awareness around, here's what we do, here's how we can help. And prevent readmission, shorten length of stay.
Roxanne, would you offer any comments on, the state's view of the sponsors of PACE programs and, and many of these are like partnerships that you've got more than one organization that's a sponsor. Could you just comment on, like, what does the state look for in determining what programs you're going to approve?
Well, when an organization comes to us, they have a letter of intent on where they intend to put a program, and then they do a feasibility study, and part of that feasibility study includes financials. So that will go to our actuarial department. They will look at all the financials, where the funding's come from, and there's actually, PACE is highly regulated through the federal government, through the 42 CFR 460. So a lot of things that take place, or all things that take place, all really revolves around those regulations. And there's regulations regarding financials, what the amount has to be. And so we look at the financials, and then there's a whole application process that once the state looks at it and say we give our approval, then it goes to the feds.
Okay, we're going to open this up to the broader audience in about 5 minutes, so be ready. And Mark Croner's going to bring the mic around. So Roxanne, this may be a question for you, and it's regarding unique challenges that PACE programs might face in serving rural communities. As you see the map, there's some of the programs that are in more rural areas.
I think the biggest one is just driving times. We look with any PACE organization, the drive time to and from the center is an hour. So when a PACE or when an organization comes to us wanting to start a PACE program, we look at the service area that they're requesting, and we literally go to the computer and we map it out to see what the drive times are. I will tell you that we do have rural communities that we have went over the hour a little bit, because in some of those rural areas, those people are used to driving a long ways to get any care. And there are often areas that there's not enough covered lives for another PACE program to actually move in. So it's going to be those current PACE programs that eventually put in another center to extend to cover that area. So we do allow sometimes, I think staffing can be another issue in rural areas, as well as just along with the staff, if you have a long drive time and you're providing home care, which PACE provides a lot of, you have a lot of people on the road for a lot of hours. So I think there's some distinct challenges, but I also think that we see in how fast PACE has grown in Michigan that they're very innovative. We have a wonderful Michigan PACE program, and they think outside the box, and that's how PACE survives. I mean, I'll just add, nobody has said it, but during the pandemic, PACE did not get any extra COVID money. All nursing homes, hospitals, everybody did. PACE got nothing. PACE often housed people in their program because there was no place to put them. Hospitals needed to get rid of them and discharge them so they could have care for the critically ill. So PACE has done a wonderful job. And I just thought you should know that they really think outside the box. And I do believe that in the rural areas it can work. And I do think that in the UP, my goal is before I retire that I will see a PACE program in the UP, because I think there are ways to make it work.
Roxanne, so much of the credit to that thinking out of the box really goes back to you and the team at the state that allows the PACE programs to do that. So thank you so much.
Well, thank you, but we have good PACE programs to work with. And I will say that I talked to a lot of different states, and I have 3 staff that work with me, so the 4 of us handle the whole state of Michigan. I will say as we continue to grow, I think that I'm going to reach out. I think that we could use more staff. But our leadership has been wonderful. They don't micromanage what we do. Of course, signatures, important things we send to them. But on a day-to-day basis, the 4 of us run the PACE programs, and I think that's what has made it work due to our state leadership.
It's a partnership.
Yeah.
It is.
And we've seen that reflected with Director Hertel and her engagement in PACE Southeast Michigan and PACE Central Michigan, and she is tremendously supportive of you and the whole team.
I've been an advocate. I just have to add one thing because I thought it was kind of funny, and Mary will remember this. We were in an executive directors meeting, and my leadership was there. This has been several years ago. It's all new leadership. But anyway, I had made a comment that our director didn't agree with. And I said, but it's true. I'm not saying that it's wrong. And I said it's probably one of the few times that I've probably, looking back, probably overspoke what I should have said. But I felt so strongly, and it was true. And this person kind of leaned over and he goes, remember who you work for. And I do remember who I work for, but I'm going to advocate for PACE.
So thank you so much. And maybe this will be the last question that I'll ask, and then we'll open up to the audience. Roxanne, thank you for mentioning the pandemic. And so, Mary, I'm going to ask you to respond to this, and because of your vantage point, not only with Pay Southeast Michigan and the national. So what was the overall experience of participants in PACE relative to the pandemic versus individuals that were living in other settings? And what do you think contributed to the difference?
First of all, I have to thank Roxanne, because she's a wonderful partner for us in the state. They have to support what we do, the crazy ideas we come up with, she's got to support. So it's a two-way street. During the pandemic, we had to get very creative, and we had to do things way outside the box. And the state was supportive during that time. And there wasn't additional funding, we just figured it out. I think what was really different was that the people that work with us in PACE, our teams, were willing to take the risk and go into homes and care for the most vulnerable population during that COVID time period, our older adults with complex illness, right? That they were the most vulnerable. So we asked our employees to go into homes because we had to shut down the centers, and that's what they did. And it was during a time that we didn't know what to do. Versus a nursing home, there was congregate living. And so it was very difficult to protect them from each other. Whereas when you were in your own home, you could be safer, right? That's really what happened. And so the people we took care of, I think we had a 4% death rate, and the nursing homes had closer to a 20% death rate. So that gives you an example of the difference in the setting. You know, there's just nothing better than being in your own place. We probably all agree on that. And so that's what we did. And I think it was, you know, I'm going to say this over and over, it was the heroism of our people. They were heroes because they were putting their own lives at risk to take care of the people that we take care of. That's about the most unselfish act I can think of. And it was a very, very scary time. Dr. Grady, she gets kudos, leading the way during that time of unknown. I mean, it was really one of those times when you just don't know what's happening. You don't know how to protect people. You can't say, yes, it's going to be okay, because we weren't sure. And so that's really, it was the most difficult leadership time period of my career. How about you, Dr. Grady? I have this vision of, we called each other every single night, updating on CDC, et cetera, so that we could stay in front of whatever information we could get and keep our people safe.
Go ahead, Sicely.
I just want to add that, so the people were heroes, but the leadership is what, you have to have a buy-in if you want people to do exactly what you need them to do to keep people safe. It was the leadership stopping what they were doing and saying, you know what, we're talking about COVID, we're worried about the participants, but the fact that leadership worried about the people who were going to actually be in the homes was a difference maker, because they could have easily said, hey, you're going to go in the homes. And I was a home care coordinator then, so everything that happened came my way, which was very, very difficult to try to convince people to go into homes. But the fact that leadership came down and said, you know what, I hear you, and I know your concerns, but someone has to take care of these people. Someone has to put eyes on these people, and I think that leadership rallying around the people that have to take care of the people was a big difference, because those conversations could have went totally different ways. In our retention rate, we lost some people, but we still had a pretty okay retention rate even during COVID. So I think I do give kudos to the leadership, especially Dr. Grady, for coming to every single center anytime. If I called and said, hey, I had a problem, this, she'll come there and she'll speak to the whole center. So I think leadership has a big part to do in the buy-in so that the staff felt safe and comfortable going into those homes.
So,
Can I
yes.
add one more thing? Yeah, so just to echo the leadership side of it, so You know, we were all watching, director at the time, Kate Massey, coming down, and I forgot who our other director was at that time, who's no longer there. But, we saw all these EOs, executive orders, right? We've got an EO out, we're going to shut down this, and we're going to shut down that, and restaurants and gardens, and we can't sell this, and EO after EO after.
Has to be vaccinated.
Yeah, right, like we're going to shut it down. Okay, great. So it was a Thursday, and we are on a call with the Medicaid director, Kate Massey at the time, and we're on the call, and she says, well, we're going to shut down our PACE centers. We're not going to provide services. We're going to shut it down. And so we politely said, well, where's the executive order? We haven't seen that. She said, well, you guys can look, but it's out there. It's coming down. We're going to shut down. So, oh God, what are we going to do? Monday morning, Mary Naber said, oh hell no, we're not doing that. She had a letter on Massey's desk that politely said, yeah, I'm not shutting down. If you want to shut us down, you come out, shut us down. We're going to continue to provide services. And she did. Nobody shut it down.
You eventually did shut down.
You eventually did, but it wasn't,
When she was done.
yeah, but it was the leadership that recognized and had a voice for the seniors and said, we're around there, yes, Lansing, you're great, but I know it's best, we know it's best, and we need to provide these services.
And shutting down to us.
Let me just clarify. We kept giving services the whole time. We just did them in a different environment. We couldn't do them in our centers, but we kept our clinics open, so we still brought people to the clinic. We were doing it differently than what we had done prior.
Yes.
So we didn't shut any service down. The services continued. We just had to do it different.
So Lou, you're going to ask the first question, and then please raise your hand if you have another question.
So I want to tie PACE into us. I want to make sure we understand the connection that we have, the significance of the relationship between PACE and PVM, the importance of the connection, our participation in the expansion of the program. All of that is what we talk about. We don't talk about the day-to-day like Sicily. We don't talk about, the state and the money. We talk sometimes to Mary and Stephanie, but it's important, I think, that we as a board understand the importance of our connection. What we do for one another, how we help one another.
Well, I have the privilege of working at Tomei Rivertown, so I know firsthand the partnership PVM has with PACE. We have a significant amount of participants who stay in our assisted living and our independent living that are PACE participants. But more, I think, what's the best part is the greenhouse. We have a greenhouse at Tomei that only houses PACE participants. And these participants could easily be in the nursing home without PVM and the PACE partnership for the greenhouse to only service PACE. We would have, I don't know how many beds it's in, 12, 24 beds? 21. That would be 21 participants in a nursing home. So if we just think about it like that, without that greenhouse, 21 participants would be in a nursing home. Without that assisted living, Rivertown assisted living with partnership with Caring Hearts that takes care of our participants, we can have more participants in a nursing home. So I think that the PACE and PVM connection at the Tomei Rivertown, it's hard for me to speak about others, but I think that we have, in Southeast Michigan PACE, we are the only center that has a greenhouse. So that's very significant to our participants. But the greenhouse is not just open to Tomei, it is open to anybody in PACE who qualifies for the greenhouse. But I think that's one of the best connections that we have, is that we're right there on campus. The doctors are right there on campus, the nurses are there, the social workers are there, the PCAs are there, the dietitian is there, the foot doctor is there, audiology is there, air doctor is there. I mean, I could go down the list of the disciplines that's there, and the mobile medical services that come. The dentist, oh yes, the dentist, they love the dentist. The dentist is there. So just having that, these participants live at PVM and can be able to just travel down they need those type of services, I think it's really, really big, and I hope that every center gets a PACE or equivalent to that at a campus like this.
For me, it allows them to stay safely in their home. That's the benefit to PVM, right? Is that your residents living in your different campuses and communities, and the partnership with PACE allows them to stay in their home while they're getting the care that they need. That's what Westland will be, right? Same model as Rivertown. We're gonna have a PACE program that's right on site. It saves from a lot of, it makes it easier for the participant, as Sicely has just described, because they can access right there and then, right on their campus. From a strategic perspective, I think it strengthens PVM to be part with PACE, and PACE is strengthened by PVM because there is shared collaboration, there's shared wisdom, and the way in which we all care for seniors, right? We're all caring for seniors. We just have our different roles in doing that. Is that what you were looking for?
Yeah.
Okay.
Raise your hand and Mark will bring the mic over to you. And state your name if you would, when you do that. And if you're directing the question to one individual, please say that too.
Thank you. Hi, everyone. I'm Tom Jankowski. I'm the Associate Director for Research at the Institute of Gerontology at Wayne State, and hopefully a new board member soon. One of the things that concerns me a great deal is that, I've worked a lot in the aging services space, and especially under Older Americans Back program, there are always wait lists, and it's horrible when people need services and don't get them. What's even worse is when they get them and then you take them away. And I'm concerned about the Medicaid redetermination and what effect it's going to have on PACE participants, because they didn't have to requalify for a few years, and now everybody's being reviewed, and I'm sure you're going to lose some folks, and just wondered about your thoughts about that.
Before I give it to Mary to talk about the redeterminations, yes, the wait list, right? So we hear about all these wait lists, folks not getting services. I will say that our PACE programs do not have wait lists. So it would be phenomenal for the programs that do have wait lists to refer to PACE, and we would be happy to provide our services to folks who don't have them.
Yeah, this is where there's sometimes a little competitive nature in the space. But yes, we try to partner with the AAAs because they have the wait lists and we do not have wait lists.
Mary, say who the AAAs are.
The DAAA for Detroit is
Area Agency on Aging.
I'm sorry, Area Agency on Aging, which are providing some home and community-based services for people in need. It's also state-funded program, and they have a long wait list. But there's something protective around not referring out. I don't know what it's about. I have some suspicions, but please know, PACE does not have any wait list at any of the programs that I know of. So we are open. Our challenge is the criteria for getting into PACE is more limited than it is for AAA. That's probably the biggest barrier. With regard to redeterminations, that has pained us since the start. We've been tracking who might be over. We know that 30 people are going to need to disenroll from PACE Southeast Michigan because they're going to be over income by right now, the May 11th date. And I wish there was more we could do, but those are the rules of the state and the Medicaid rules that we have to comply with. We try to suggest to the families, spend down all these different things that we have some success, but not always. Families have input.
The state does have divestment. The state does have divestment rules, but often families aren't willing to follow those.
I wish I had a better answer for you. It's the real one.
John,
And the question, I'm clear on something. It sounds like there's.
Can you say your name, John?
I'm John Lundgren. Is it on? Yes. John Lundgren, fairly new board member. It sounds like there's some tie-in with Henry Ford Health Systems as far as healthcare or doctors needing healthcare, but there are also other healthcare systems that have PACE programs and provide funding, which seems like an odd duality to me, if we could speak to that. That would be-
Yes. So hopefully this will provide some clarity. PACE programs are provided zip codes that they serve. So PACE Southeast Michigan serves all of Macomb County, the majority of Wayne and Oakland County. In those, so we have to serve all the people that meet that eligibility in those 3 counties. And in doing so, our preferred provider is Henry Ford. They own us 55%. PVM owns us 45%. We operate independently, so we partner with other health systems like Ascension, because our participants have the right to go wherever they wish. If they need to go to the hospital and they live close to St. John Macomb Hospital, that's where they're gonna go. And we need to stay connected to St. John Macomb, so we stay connected on our participants' behalf. So that's part of the confusion, is that we have a preferred provider for specialty care, Henry Ford. However, we have other providers, because we've grown so much, that we have contracts with other providers. CMS requires us to have a contract with anyone who's gonna provide care to our participants. So dentists, specialists, that's all part of the regulation of the program. Did that help?
Yeah.
So in other, like Dana, you probably have 1 hospital system that you work with, 2. So it depends on how many hospitals are in the geography of where the PACE program is at. We have 8 centers, so they're all dispersed throughout Oakland County and Wayne County and Macomb County. So there are many health systems, as you know. So we try to provide contracted services with each of them. We have been unsuccessful with the DMC. Unsuccessful getting a contract with them.
Anybody else?
And I think it's because they have a revolving door.
Thank you. Henry Johnson, board member, PVM. Are there any efforts being floated by for-profit organizations to get into the market of
Yeah,
cases?
so this,
I say that because my wife and I got a call one night by a church member who was affiliated with one of those groups, and we were astonished. He said, here's what you're going to be doing with non-for-profit and for state, the ones that we belong to. But I was surprised that there are now groups of businessmen, corporations coming up with the attempts to get into the market, so to speak.
yeah, and I think that goes back to your question earlier about, what's the relationship with PVM? How does that work? Why us? Why not you guys, right? So I think, was it yesterday, we saw the article, the Detroit News, talking about Michigan being one of the fastest aging states in the nation, right? So all of our young folks are on their way out, we're aging, right? When we look at that PACE map, how long has PVM been in business? How long have you guys?
Almost 80 years.
Almost 80 years. So you're not going anywhere, right? You're invested in these communities. So why not you guys? Why wouldn't you go and try to help people in these other parts of the state? Because if you don't do it, those other, the for-profits, the fly-by-nights are going to come in and they will serve that population.
Can I add, there is a lot of interest in PACE since COVID. So lots of private equity, lots of investment, the growth in PACE across the country. So there used to be 132 programs throughout the country. There are now 150 in just 2 years, and they're projecting many more. And that's because of the private investors, and Innovate that tried to get into our area is a publicly traded company now. So yes, there are many that are in it. And I pray, because we watched it happen with hospice, I pray the same thing doesn't happen to the PACE industry. I know, right.
Yes, several years ago, CMS made the decision, they left it up to the states whether we allowed for-profits in the PACE world. At that point, the leadership was not willing to say we won't allow any for-profit. When we look at all of our other health programs and systems, we have for-profits. We do have one for-profit PACE program. So we do have a for-profit. But what we started, the unmet need, probably 2019, was that we wanted to create some sort of an algorithm so that we could determine if there was an unmet need in an area. As Mary indicated, there was a for-profit that tried to get into Southeast. When we were small, and it's just part of growing pains, when we were small, we just said, we don't allow competition. It was just kind of an accepted thing that when somebody got zip codes for a PACE organization, those were theirs. Well then, and I can tell you that there's been some organizations that I've told over the years, we just don't allow it, because at that point we didn't. But as we grew, it became more and more apparent that Michigan was a good state maybe to do this in, and to start a PACE program. So we do allow it, but we do have an unmet need formula that we use. So if we have a new organization, not a current program that wants to expand, but a new organization come into an existing area, we have on our website whether or not there's an unmet need in that area. And if there's not an unmet need according to the formula that we use, then we don't allow a new organization to come in.
And can I just say, the reason behind that is less about competition and more about the fact that you compete for these limited dollars that are budgeted every year. It's not like fee for service where you bill somebody and you're gonna get paid. It's we budget for the amount we're gonna get. And so if we're both in the same area fighting for the same participants, it's gonna cause the cost of care to go up and there'll be less money available to the participant.
Yeah, Mary, explain a capitated rate. It's
Okay.
a term that we throw around.
Okay, so capitated rate is really what people call the values payment methodology, right? And you get an amount per member per month. And that's how we're paid. Per member per month from Medicaid, per member per month from Medicare. The combined amounts is our revenue. It's that simple. In a fee-for-service, it's every encounter you bill. Every encounter. So in the PACE program, we're gonna get the same amount every month for the people we serve. We have to keep growing our enrollment because people pass away, they leave us, so you're always working on growth of enrollment because that's where all the revenue's coming from.
And it's per participant.
And it's per participant. Now I'll complicate it even more. The Medicaid portion depends on where the person lives. By region. So I'm gonna tell you, Macomb County is the highest payer in the PACE Southeast Michigan region, followed by Oakland, and Wayne County is the lowest paid in the state. It irritates the heck out of me. And so I always make sure people know about it. There isn't good rationale for it. There is effort around trying to change the way the Medicaid rates occur, but that is the way it's currently done.
And not just for PACE, that is for all the Medicaid programs.
All the Medicaid programs is by region. The other part of this is the Medicare part is based on how chronically ill the people are that you take care of. And they evaluate that based on a number of factors. And it's survey, it's documentation, et cetera. It's really the frailty factor that informs them on how sick the people are that you're taking care of.
Well, Mary, the other half that you gotta talk about is you're also responsible for the expenses.
Exactly. So we are what is called fully, so we get this payment per month, right, from both Medicare and Medicaid. And we are fully at risk. What that means, because we're the health plan, if they go to the hospital, we pay the bill. If they go to a cardiologist, we pay the bill. Any care, if they get over-the-counter drugs, we're paying those bills. Anything they need, we're gonna pay the bill if it relates to care. So we have to be really good about making sure that people are getting the care that they need in the right setting at the right time. And that's really that's the secret of PACE. If you can do it well, you're gonna be okay financially. If you lose track of who's going to the hospital, you're gonna lose your shirt in a minute. And that's the reality.
And Mary,
And many of our participants, the worst place for them is the hospital. Because they get confused, they're laying there waiting to be cared for, they catch things, it's just not the place.
Two more questions.
Really?
Hello, this is Carolyn Hastings, and I'm a PVM board member, a brand new one. This is, I think, a question for Cicely. Can you describe to me what a day is like? You talk about people going to see the dentist and the foot doctor and whatever, but I come there in the morning, and you've also talked about playing bingo, but probably I can't play bingo all day. So tell me a little bit about when I come, when I arrive, what happens to me, do I have lunch, when I have lunch, it's just what's my day like?
So let's start with before you arrive. So maybe before you arrive, you're a person who needs home care. So our home care, we have home care start at 5:30, 6 in the morning. Our home care will come to you, they'll get you up, they'll get you ready, they'll remind you and remind you only to take your medication. The bus driver during that time will call you about an hour and a half before pickup on your center day, and he'll say, I'm on my way, and you'll either say, okay, or I need more time, and our bus drivers will give you that time if you need it. You just have to tell them. Once you're picked up on a bus, our goal is not to spend more than 1 hour on the bus, so the whole route should only last 1 hour. That's from pick up to drop off back at the center. So if you have 10 participants on your bus in your area, within that hour, they should be picked up and dropped off at the center. Once you get to the center, you're checked in. You're going to be greeted by our lovely PCAs, which are Participant Care Associates. They are the ones who are with the participants all day. So our wonderful associates, they're going to help transport them from the bus until the day health center, wherever they want to sit. Any room is available except for one, but any room is available for them to sit. They'll get their attendance taken. They'll get a badge. The badge has a scan, what do you call it, a barcode on the back. So that's how we take our attendance. We scan the barcode, so they go right into the computer. We know that that person is here. Once they enter the day health center, I can tell you right now, music is already going. When they enter, they are not entering some poor little sad, quiet center. That's why we have different rooms. So we have a blue, it depends on which center you are, but we have a blue room, that's the live room. If you like a lot of noise, a lot of engagement, that's the room you sit on. If you're in the green room, if you don't like a lot of noise and a lot of engagement, that's the one you sit in because the noise level is down. The activities, which I said bingo because that's the favorite. And if you go through there hollering bingo when it ain't bingo, you don't want to see those participants. So you'll come in, you'll get breakfast. We serve 2 hot meals. Thank you, Mary. We serve 2 hot meals, and I said thank you to Mary because it used to be a continental breakfast, but our participant says, we're not here for continental, we're here for hot breakfast. Therefore, they have a hot breakfast now, whether that's waffles and eggs and bacon or toast, whatever the hot breakfast is that they have a hot breakfast along with the option of a cold breakfast like cereal, and it's always cereal, oatmeal, and sometimes grits. Yeah, you already know. Cereal, oatmeal, and grits are always available, but we always have a hot meal and we have 2 kitchens. So cheese grits, and we have those. Oh, matter of fact, it's loaded cheese grits, and they put bacon bits in them. We're not playing over there. So once you have your breakfast, during your breakfast, they have a grateful every morning. And grateful just means getting up and saying the things you're grateful for, okay? Because, and I always participate at least three times a week in grateful to tell them what I'm grateful for too. So they'll have grateful. The PCAs are the ones who pass the meals, pick up the trays, make sure that the participant is toileted every 2 hours for the ones that need to be toileted so that we can keep skin irritation and breakdown. So we're at breakfast. After breakfast, there's always an activity. The activities change from day to day. So they have an activity calendar. This activity today, we might have a DJ come in, and the DJ don't play. He come in there playing music. We have a live flute player that comes in there and plays the jams. I've never heard a flute played before, and she does it. We have things like during this time of year, we have a senior prom. We have trips that they go on, so 2 days out the week, and we just started those back. Thanks again. We just started those back, so 2 days out the week, they're either going to Walmart or Hobby Lobby or Golden Corral or the Coney Island. They just went to Lansing for Capital Day. So after breakfast and they have their activity, breakfast always starts at around 9 o'clock, just to let you know. Lunch is at 12:30, and this is why lunch is at 12:30 versus the 12 o'clock time. Because by the time they get finished with lunch, they ready to go, and it ain't time yet. So we need to bring lunch back a little, about half an hour, and at 12:30. So that gives them time to eat, and it also gives the PCAs or the CNAs, I don't know, it depends on what you call them, it gives them a chance to toilet and clean up the participants that needs to be toileted. After that, then about 2 o'clock, the buses start loading for them to go home. Now, in between time, at that day health center, things are happening. A lot of things are happening. So let's say, for instance, the podiatrist is here, the foot doctor is here. Well, I can tell you right now, we got about 25, 30 people that's scheduled for the foot doctor, and we got 25 more that's not scheduled that want to go. So we do everything we can to make sure that their podiatry appointment that day, whoever's in the center that day, we have a clinic assistant that comes out and gets them periodically throughout the center to whatever appointment they have. Maybe they have a clinic appointment, maybe they have a podiatry appointment. Whatever appointment, they'll do that. Also, if a participant is there and they have external appointment, and our external appointments usually land at Henry Ford, any Henry Ford down the street here, down the lodge. And we have a PCA that will accompany and go with them. So the day health center is packed full of, I cannot forget about that. We have rehab there, and our rehab is not, you can only get 2 weeks of rehab. No, you can get rehab Monday through Friday. Of course, you have to make sure you're on the list so they can be scheduled for you to have rehab. If it's not practical for Monday through Friday, you won't get it Monday through Friday, but it never stops. So rehab doesn't stop when, you had a knee injury, your knee is better, you go ahead. It doesn't go like that, because once we get them where they are, we want them to maintain. And how do we maintain them if we don't at least have them come in twice a week, just like us, going to the gym for exercise, going and working that knee out, or working that hip out, or working that shoulder out, or whatever the ailment is. So the day health center is more than just somewhere they can just come and sit down and eat and play games. It's social. It can be spiritual. We have spiritual care there who holds a Bible study. Also, we have behavioral health. And you feel like, look, I'm not feeling myself, but I'm not sick. Like, I just need to talk to somebody. We can refer you right to behavioral health. We always have behavioral health in the building, and they are always willing to come around there and pull you and talk to you. It's just, the day health center is a good time. I started off as a PCA. In case you all didn't know that, I started off as a PCA, so I know how exciting that day health center. I also came from a nursing home, so I know where the hope is and where the hope isn't. And the hope is not in the nursing home. The hope is right there, where they can come in and see you every single day. So that's the day in life of all of us at the day health center.
Thank you.
Thank you. One final question. And if you could make this a fairly short answer, but each of you will have a crack at it. Okay, now consider yourself advisors to the board of directors of Presbyterian Villages, Michigan. Okay, that's the audience. So how can the PVM board of directors support the development, expansion, advocacy, and success of PACE across Michigan? And again, brief answers. Again, you're advising the PVM board.
I would advise every board member to go visit a PACE center. If you've never been to one, it will be life-changing. And I think until you see firsthand what goes on in a PACE center, and then you will realize the importance of housing along with the PACE program. So that would be my first advice, and I'll let others go on. But I'm sorry, I have to add one thing. We talked about no COVID money, and when the feds and the state was providing COVID money, COVID relief money during the COVID years, they did not get any money, but Stephanie was vital in advocating for supplemental dollars. So finally last year, PACE did get some, not that it was enough, but they did get money that was considered COVID, wasn't relief, I can't think of the term, but they finally did get some funding, so we were thankful for that, even though as small as it was, that at least they did get something since none of the other dollars had been available to them.
I would advise, like I was going to actually say, visit a center, but don't just visit the center to sit down and talk to the participants. Talk to them as if you want to help them, you want to understand them. You not to hold back questions, but talk to them. Not talk to them, talk with them. That's the difference. Talk with them. Also, I would advise to visit the homes of some of these participants. And I'm not saying, oh, you have to pick a house to go to. Like, no, team up with a PCT, which is the patient care team. Team up with a patient care team. Go to a home visit with a nurse. Go on a home visit with a PCA or a home health aide, and see what PACE is really about. See that a lot of these people, we all they got. We really all they got. They family gone, or they don't have any family. Some of them didn't have insurance until they qualified for the program and got insurance. Some people didn't even have teeth until they came to the dentist and we got them a full set. That's how simple the things that we take for granted every single day, opening the refrigerator and having food, some of them didn't have that before we started giving out, before they came and started receiving frozen meals. So I would tell everybody, don't just visit the center, visit the participant. Visit them in their environment, and then you can really understand why PACE is such a blessing in a community of people, and we serve the poorest of the poor in our community. Who can survive off $2,000 a month a year? Exactly. That's the community that we serve. So seeing how they live and understanding how they live and understanding them, it's the best way to see the impact that PACE has on each life of our participants.
Yes. I guess after you've visited a center and talked with a participant and learned about their life and the impact that PACE has on their life, then I would ask you to use all the influence that you have and continuing to ensure that the state of Michigan funds PACE programs, eliminates some of the barriers that we face, and makes it available to even more seniors in need, because it's not available to a lot of people. And so that's what I would ask. In addition, you're all welcome to come to our fundraising breakfast. And I'll tell you why, because PACE,
Friend raisers, I think.
yeah, it's our Breakfast with Friends. It'll be in October, I think, this year. And what we do, we actually have a race, a 5K race, walk race, whatever you'd like, at Stony Creek on June 3rd. Thank you. I know it's this week, the weekend coming up, after this weekend. Anyway, the interesting thing about this is the program can only pay for the care. That's really what we have dollars for. Our participants have so many needs in their homes: leaky roofs, refrigerators that don't work, broken steps, hot water tanks that break down, water bills that haven't been paid so they have no water, things like that. So we have been blessed with very generous donors who've been providing funds to PACE through our foundation, through our fundraising, so that we can do for them. We have bought many a mattress and replaced many of these things, because if you don't have a working refrigerator, you are not safe in your home. That's gonna impact your healing. It's gonna impact your well-being. So those are the kinds of things we do with the funds that we raise. So I invite you all. I'll make sure you get an invite. Thank you.
Call your legislator, right? So a lot of these people we serve, they may have quieter voices than all of you. And so if you don't know who your state senator is or your representative, maybe you've got a good relationship with our governor, whatever that is, use your voice, call them, let them know how important funding is for our PACE programs to expand them. You have got some phenomenal advocates on your board with your fearless leader, Roger. That man never sleeps. He keeps me on my toes, not only with meetings and phone calls, but open up your checkbooks. That's the other thing, right? It can't guarantee you a vote or funding, but it allows you to be at the table. And if you're not at the table, you are on the menu.
So we are grateful to Baraha, grateful. So we are going to make contributions to the PACE Association of Michigan and the National PACE Association in your names. Really? I don't lie. I'm a clergyman. I've used that before. We have started these board enrichment programs, and it was a surprise to the board when Roger and I sort of sprung it on them. But I think everyone would agree, after everyone, we've learned a lot more. Everyone, we learn more and more and more. We try to be intelligent board members, and you have helped us greatly, and we are grateful and appreciative. So thank you so much. Thank you so much. We're going to take a break.
Mr. Chair, can I just make one comment?
Yes. Briefly, please, David.
It will be.
Thank you.
I've been very involved with PACE. I was the builder for the greenhouse PACE. I am presently working with PACE over at Rivertown, working on some HVAC issues. Up at Sunrise PACE up in Fort Gratiot, I was a part of construction up there, watching what was going on up there, and working with us at Lake Huron Woods. I've interacted with the people every day that I go there. And I've danced with the people in the Blue Room. I know what that's about. I would encourage every board member, every foundation person, anyone that had anything to do with PACE, to please support them. The changes that you see and the difference between a nursing home and what you see going on by PACE is absolutely phenomenal. Phenomenal. And we really need to do that. So please continue to support PACE. Thank you.